Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And of course, we're looking for the leadership is making a difference as well. For without leaders, it doesn't matter what types of products or services or technologies we do have, that nothing is going to work properly. And we have a gentleman who's actually focused on this in many different ways. This is Christopher King, CEO, and he has the Conscious Business Nexus, which is a very high-sounding organization. We'll let you tell us about that in just a minute. Also, he is the co-founder and president, and this is actually how we really met, of what's called Conscious Capitalism, the DC chapter. So, King, it's welcome to have you back on the Emerald Planet.
Thank you. Welcome to be back, sir.
Glad to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing as far as this Conscious Business Nexus, and a little bit about the Conscious Capitalism, and then we'll go into this big project you're working on in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes. Well, the Conscious Business Nexus is an online hub that connects socially conscious businesses from around the world to one another so they can connect, engage, do business, seek for other contacts, and just really begin to have a communication dialogue with one another. Best practices, discuss, share information. So it's a portal for that purpose. Mm-hmm.
Now, looking at the conscious capitalism, I know that you have, it's conscious, and there's a whole lot of descriptors of what all that means. Why the conscious emphasis with conscious capitalism, conscious business nexus, all of that? What's the underpinning of all this idea?
Well, conscious really means awareness. Mm-hmm. And we're saying that we need to be aware of our surroundings, our community, who we engage with in business, as more importantly, being aware of who we are as individuals as well. So conscious in the context that we believe that if you're aware and you are in tune, then you're going to be much more strategic in thinking with your decisions that you're going to make.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at this, how is this really a philosophy that relates to everyone? Is this only for elites? This is something that you're putting down across all of society, down, to everyone within, Maslow's hierarchy of need. Everybody's going to be tied into this. How does this actually work?
Well, conscious capitalism is pretty much based upon 4 core principles of number 1, higher purpose, that a business must have a higher purpose. Number 2, stakeholder orientation. All the stakeholders must benefit. Number 3 is conscious leadership. Conscious leaders create businesses, solve world problems. Number 4 is conscious culture. And so we believe as conscious capitalists that we can solve all the world's problems through business. And conscious capitalists is open for everybody. It's not just elite, it's actually anyone who wants to have a higher purpose, that wants to do something good, and more importantly, that wants to be part of a movement that is spreading to sit here and make sure that we no longer sit on the sidelines and complain about change, but we actually are in the front fields making change happen.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at all this, many people are saying that capitalism may be part of the problem as far as dealing with the issues that you have, particularly in emerging market economies in Africa, Latin America, the Pacific, and places like that. So how do you see this conscious capitalism, being able to say this is really advancing humanity, this is advancing humankind, instead of it's a way to retard or holding people back?
Well, capitalism has a lot of bad elements to it. And again, I'd say it goes back to the person's intent. Mm-hmm. Capitalism that only focuses on profit maximization is a bad thing. Capitalism that has a conscience, that has a spirit, that has a higher purpose to it is what is really needed. And that's where we really begin to spread that awareness, that folks need to have an awareness of how to go about conducting their capitalism, not to be so much focused on how to make a profit, but how to make a valuable contribution to society.
So what you're doing then is that really, as far as this conscious capitalism, is that allowing everybody to be able to realize what they need out of the transaction, but more than the transaction, in the relationship that's
Absolutely.
being developed. And I think there's a real focus on collaboration, sustainability, resiliency that's embedded to this whole concept as well. Tell us how all of that is woven together.
Well, it's woven together because, again, it goes back to our 4 core principles. Number 2 being stakeholder orientation. A conscious capitalist has to create a business that has identified who their 5 core stakeholders are, and they're different depending on the business. But you must have a plan that each stakeholder must benefit, not equally, but each one has to have a benefit. Each one has to have a clarity of how they're going to benefit and how you measure that. So no one is being left on the side. And then more importantly, the stakeholders vote with their dollars. If you're not delivering the value that you claim that you are, then it's going to show and you're not going to be supported, and your business is not going to be sustainable.
So you don't have a government there that's ossifying this whole process or freezing it, that is allowing it to free form through the free market, but at the same time, there's still this emphasis so that people feel like they're getting what they need out of the relationship.
Absolutely, and it's a constant measuring of that because it's not a once and done conversation. It's an engagement process with your stakeholder. So you can figure out on a quarterly basis what their needs are, because it may change from quarter to quarter. And your job as a conscious leader is to make sure you have a process in place for identifying that and staying engaged and communicating with them.
Now you evolving this to something that's called the Conscious Community Initiative. This is something in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes.
This is international, so a lot of people may not know where Baltimore, Maryland is, even though people locally will know. Where is Baltimore, Maryland? But more than that, what is this Conscious Community Initiative? What does that really mean?
Well, Baltimore, Maryland is located on the eastern seaboard. It's part of what they call the Boston, Washington corridor, right off 95, is Interstate 95. So it's between, I would say, coming from Richmond, then you have
That's
Washington,
in Virginia.
D.C., and Richmond's in Virginia, Washington, D.C., Baltimore City, then from there, you Philadelphia, New Jersey, and New York.
Right.
So it's right there on the eastern coast. Now, the reason we choose in Baltimore City is, number one, is that to live here in the D.C. area and make the statement that business can solve all the world's problems, and then look at what's happening in Baltimore City and not look at how we can address that, to me would be hypocritical and not being conscious. So we chose Baltimore City because of number one, Baltimore City has a lot of systemic problems, but as conscious leaders, we don't see problems, we see opportunities. Mm-hmm. Baltimore has a lot of potential for growth. The folks have been very welcoming in Baltimore City, and so they're looking to make a positive change. And we believe the conscious community is going to be the element that brings it about.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, looking at the area, are there any particular areas that you're looking at in Baltimore? Or are you just looking generally at the city? Or how are you going to advance this as far as this Conscious Community Initiative?
Well, Rich Rudy, who you're going to meet in the next section, is our real estate developer, director of real estate development for the chapter. Him and I have done a very extensive research over the last 60 days throughout Baltimore City to look for the best areas that we can implement conscious community for that would have the most impact. And so we've identified, or we nailed it down to 3 areas, which we're going to finalize that decision. But right now we're looking at Edmonston Village, which is the area in Baltimore City, Liberty Heights, and then Druid Heights. So those are 3 areas, and they're all on the west side of Baltimore that we're going to focus our development on. And so we're going to finalize that this week.
Now, what are you looking at in terms of these communities? What do you want to see so you can actually practice this conscious capitalism?
Well, our approach, number one, is that we make sure that before we do any real estate development, that we have to engage with our stakeholders first, and to learn from what our stakeholders are looking for in the community. How much green space they're looking for, do they need jobs, what kind of training on that, do they need, are there any entrepreneurs that want to start a business, so that we can bring microfinancing services to the community, as well as mentorship and guidance. And so our approach is looking for a community that's already one that is somewhat engaged and has clarity on looking to work together. They're looking for housing. They want housing that is going to be built nicely in the context that is something they'll be prideful of, home ownership. It's going to be green in the context that it's going to be efficient, green efficient. We're looking to install solar panels in a lot of properties. And so our focus is really a community that is seeking that assistance and want to be part of what we call our conscious community initiative, which is going to be, it's going to involve community getting engaged and communicating with one another. And so we're looking for residents who want to be a part of something like that.
Now, looking at it, how's this whole concept been received by Baltimore City itself, from some of the stakeholders already there, the power elites, the others within the community?
I would say it's been, the reception has been overwhelming as far as folks have been welcoming us in, from real estate developers are already currently in Baltimore, sharing best practices, information on what's the best ways to develop the city itself, and sharing what they can help us do, such as if we purchase properties, reducing tax liens, and getting rid of any kind of violations on the properties, showing us the best areas to invest, and connecting us to other resources that we will need in order to be successful in our investments. So it's been overwhelmingly positive, and it's actually been very warm, to be honest.
Now, looking at this this conscious community initiative, what do you think the local citizens, what is their perspective on this, and how you feel like that they feel like they can fold into this, be a part of it, but also it's something that they can actually carry forward into the future for their next generations?
I think that, initially there's some hesitation, obviously, because they've heard of something similar to this in the past.
They've been promised many things in the past, that's for sure.
Absolutely. The difference here is that, again, we're building this based upon having a dialogue and communication with the stakeholders. So we don't they help us create conscious community. We don't come to them and say, here's conscious community, you fit. No, we build it based upon what their interests, what their needs, and what their desires are. And so they actually get a say in how it actually gets developed from the very beginning.
We only have about a minute left. How do you go, give us a quick overview of how you go through that process so that they feel like they're part of this whole consciousness, this a way to assert themselves, but also be part of the future of what's going on?
Well, one of the ways that we do it is we reach out to our strategic partners, which is also part of our stakeholders. And these are housing nonprofit organizations within Baltimore City. So we connect with them, and they have an already connection to the community. So through that dialogue, and we have different, we call conscious meetings, in which the community comes out along with the housing nonprofit organizations, our development team, and we sit down and we have an honest discussion. What are you looking for your community? What's your definition of a community? What would you like to see in the type of housing that you want? And Rich will get more into that, specifically how the houses are being built. But as far as the community engagement concept, it's really sitting together in a circle and really having an engaging conversation with the community where everybody's equal, and everybody's input is valid and honored.
Well, many times the real wisdom is already in the room before you show up for the meeting.
Absolutely.
And I think that's very, very important. Well, one last quick question. What do you see for the growth of conscious capitalism 5, 10, 15 years?
I see conscious capitalism is going to be the norm for how business is done. It's going to be created as a sustainable model that most folks will ideal and resonate with. It's been a paradigm shift, and I think conscious capitalism will help bring that forth.
Fantastic. Christopher King, Conscious Capitalism, co-founder, president here and working in Baltimore as we create the Emerald Planet.
I helped turn my child's public school into a whole new kind of school. One with a curriculum that really motivates kids. One that has extended hours, 6 days a week, year-round. With loads of academic, cultural, and recreational activities. One that has support services like medical and dental right there. A school where parents' involvement is encouraged. Where teachers have more time to teach. And students are excited about learning. There's just one problem. My child doesn't ever want to come home. You can help turn your school into a community school for excellence. Find out how. Call 1-877-LOVE-TO-LEARN.
It's coming. Right to your neighborhood. And when it does, you may be surprised. It's your Social Security statement of your benefits, and it's going to help you plan your financial future. Your benefit statement will tell you how much Social Security you're eligible to receive and when you'll get it. Then you'll know how much you need to save for retirement, because that's coming too. The future is in your hands. Choose to save.
The toxic fumes from this meth lab are seeping into Jamie's sinus cavity. Ammonia vapors invade her throat. Toxic gases fill her lungs. Jamie's body is deteriorating. And she doesn't even know it.
Jamie, dinner.
So, who has the drug problem now? Find out how meth affects you at drugfree.org/.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we're looking for those 1,000 best practices, technologies, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we go to a planet with 9 billion people by 2050, how are we going to be able to take care of them as far as all the basic infrastructure, education, transportation, but also housing? How are we going to be able to provide ways that will protect the people and make sure that they can take care of their families at the same time to have jobs, to purchase the housing that they need, and to create businesses either within their own homes or within the local communities around them. And this is something that we really are focused on. I have two gentlemen, one sitting with me, one coming in by telephone. Sitting right beside me is Christopher King, CEO of Conscious Capitalism, the DC chapter, and also the Conscious Business Nexus, right?
Yes.
And then we have coming in by telephone from Baltimore, Maryland, Richard. He goes by Rich P. Rudy. He is the founder of Manor Ventures, LLC. And Rich, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Glad to have you here.
Good to be here. Thank
Welcome.
you.
And we're going to let you take a whack at this too. King and I have been talking about conscious capitalism. Tell us a little bit about that and then how that really led you to set up your own organization, this Manor Ventures LLC, for Baltimore.
Well, for about 25 years now, I've been involved in the building and development business. I've also been a licensed real estate broker during that time. And it's always been my passion to make available widespread homeownership opportunities. So a few years ago, I started to focus more on giving back to the community and came up with the concept that I changed my business model a little bit and started this organization, my company called Manor Ventures, with the whole concept that I would do what I'd done all these years, but do so in a way that really resembles and follows the tenets, natural tenets of conscious capitalism. And, King and I have had a relationship for a number of years, and now he started the Conscious Capitalism movement in D.C., and it was just a natural for me because just by nature I operate my business with the tenets of conscious capitalism, operating with a higher purpose, a conscious culture and leadership. And a focus on stakeholder orientation. That's probably the most important aspect of this, and it's just a natural for us to take that concept into Baltimore, where there's such a great need. Maybe between 30 and 40,000 vacant houses. You have a city that has lost 1/3 of its population in the last 50 years or so. It used to be 900,000. Now at 600,000, there's just tremendous need to kind of try to right that ship, to bring, and it's just a wonderful city, by the way. Probably between 40 and 50 different communities, very active, passionate associations, and ripe and ready for, a redevelopment, the initiative that we're taking on.
And as far as your own organization, tell us a little bit about that for Manor Ventures.
Well, in my organization, my goal was to focus more on utilizing labor in what I do, in building and developing or redeveloping, taking a house that could be a shell and making it a beautiful home. There are 30 or 40 different trades. There's a lot of different employment opportunities. So I decided a while back that I would focus on utilizing labor, doing job training, struggling individuals that are, I've most recently focused on drug and alcohol addicted, working with organizations that provide services for recovering drug and alcohol addicted individuals who have talents. And, so our goal is to, reintroduce them into the job market. Many of them have skill sets that are in line with development, building, redevelopment. So, I focused on utilizing, that sort of labor. And on the potential homeowner side, I just always have had a passion for introducing people to the benefits of home ownership, which are numerous, both, for personal and then overall for community. Our focus is to educate people and to assist them and prepare them for home ownership. If they're not ready today, they might be ready a year from now or 2 years from now. And, we'll work with them in that process and eventually deliver them a beautiful home.
Yeah, that really goes to the heart of this whole thing that King has been teaching as far as this conscious capitalism, the stakeholder involvement, but also to really focus on the people that are really part of your target audience in all this. And it doesn't matter about the time. See, this is one of the things I think that King has been emphasizing, and it really has resonance with people that hear about what he's doing, is that you're not worried about the time, is that you allow people to develop and become involved in the organization wherever they want to be, whatever time they are, and just let them, in a sense, almost they marinate there, they learn, they grow, they mature, and then you just kind of gradually lead them through, but allow them to do it at their own pace. And I think that's something, Rich, that many people in the real estate industry don't realize and don't focus upon. And I really want to congratulate you for what you're doing there. Talking about the areas of Baltimore, one is that this is a world audience. Tell us a little bit about where Baltimore is located, some of the challenges, but a couple of the communities and why you selected those specific communities.
Well, we've spent probably the last 3 to 4 months trying to identify, where we should focus our efforts, because in Baltimore there are a lot of choices. One of the things that we found when we started down this path was that there was already quite an initiative to redevelop, so that there were almost urban planning in areas where there had been an attempt to redevelop over the course of the downturn in our market, and then beyond. And Baltimore City was affected much well beyond this the last 7 or 8 years. So what we found that there were a number of focused areas, and I heard King mentioned a few of them. So what we've actually done is we've met with some of the community associations and community counseling agencies that serve these local neighborhoods, and they're very organized and they're very driven. They're very passionate, as are the future homeowners that live in those areas. The other thing I should state is that our initiative is to try to deliver housing that is affordable and market rate for the current residents of the city. A lot of the redevelopment that has occurred in Baltimore has been wonderful, but what it has actually done is transformed a market into a price point that would be outside of where the existing residents in that marketplace are unable to afford, and then they're forced to move out or move into another area. And our focus is to try to deliver an affordable opportunity to the people that live in the community now, so that someone might move 2 blocks up the road. They're renting today. A year from now, they're a homeowner, but they're living in their same neighborhood.
Tied all into the green jobs training, where you're allowing people, literally, they get up in the morning and hopefully they can walk to work or take a short bus ride or something like that. And I think that's really important too, not only from the standpoint of allowing for employment, but also to address the environmental issues you have in a city like a Baltimore. King, why don't you ask the next question?
Yeah, Rich, I would like for you to share with our listening audience and viewership why your approach to real estate development is different than other real estate developers. In other words, what makes it conscious?
Well, a natural, the tenants, once again, by nature, I have a higher purpose. I am, I'm earning a living doing this, but I'm seeking to have an impact on the people that I serve, and probably of all of our tenants, the stakeholder orientation, or as you've referred to, King, our strategic partners. The fact that as a company we focus on trying to deliver and collaborate with our stakeholders, that is what creates the greatest difference between a typical developer and one that operates consciously. And I'll just give you an example there of the series of stakeholders. Obviously, the people that we're going to serve, future homeowners, community organizations and homeowners associations, housing agencies and counseling agencies, the building industry. We have recently met with a local nonprofit, a building industry leader that has a program for training construction-related tasks for inner-city residents. So we're now working with them. The local municipality, the U.S. veterans, they're a source of jobs, people that are unemployed or underemployed as U.S. veterans. And as I said, I have a special affinity for people that are struggling with drug and alcohol addiction. And there are many programs and organizations out there that are working with those types of individuals to help them get back on the right path again. So what makes us a conscious company, the fact that we work arm in arm with all of those stakeholders and strategic partners.
Every time that I see you, we never have a chance to get over all of our topics, and we've accomplished that again. We have many more questions to go over. We won't get them done, but where do you see yourselves in the next 5, 10, 15 years? And you have about 10 seconds to do all that.
Well, I can tell you this, 5, 10, 15 years and beyond is what it's going to take to make Baltimore better. And this can be applied across the United States. You name the city.
That's fantastic. This is Richard Rich P. Rudy, is founder, Manor Ventures LLC. Thank you for being with us with the conscious purpose as we create the Emerald Planet.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Well, it's some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try.
Only you.
Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about Redevelopment. Nothing very nice. Holy smile. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States on a week-to-week basis, looking around the globe in those 144 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products, and of course the leaders that are making a real difference as we move through the 21st century. I have a very dynamic young man sitting right beside me who's involved in an exciting project in a place called Baltimore, Maryland in the United States. And he is one of the financial guys. So as I tell everybody, Kwesi, I'll introduce you in a second, is there's 5 things you have to make a successful project. Money, 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 and money. That's right. Plus all the other things, the conscious capitalism and all that. So we're going to have you explain what that's all about. So anyway, this is Kwesi Robotham. He is the managing member of what's called Liberty Row Capital, LLC. Kwesi, welcome to Emerald Planet TV.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we've met through the Potomac Piranhas, Conscious Capitalism, that's so right. We're getting to meet each other on an ongoing basis, that's and right. I've been very impressed with you and what you're doing. And of course, our connection is through Jamaica. And right. I want to talk to your dad about that. But Kwesi, tell us a little bit about the name of your organization, this Liberty Row Capital, and what's the origin of the name? It's a very interesting name.
Sure. Well, you know, the last name, Robotham, what I did is I traced the origin of our last name, and it turns out Row comes from the roe deer and the population of people that came from that part of England was based on that name. So we ended up coming up with the name for Liberty Row Capital based on that, because the intention was to create freedom for the family, and then by extension create freedom financially for other families as well.
Yeah, looking at that, as far as the Liberty Row Capital, you go back to the history of your family, Jamaica, the UK, all these other kinds of things. But, you know, one of the emphasis that you have is very modern, which started those many centuries ago, is this financial literacy. This is something that's really embedded in what you're doing and how you're doing it. How does that relate to your projects, and why is that so important for a company like Liberty Row?
Well, so Dr. Sam, you know, our company is really formed with the major intent of removing access to capital as a challenge in people's lives. I firmly believe that if you can remove the ability to access capital, you have the freedom to really chase after whatever goals and dreams that you have. So one of the major services that we provide at Liberty Row Capital is financial literacy. So what that means in that respect is the ability not only to comprehend financial information, but also to internalize it and then act upon it with confidence. And one of the projects, and a major project that we're undertaking that we're discussing here, is the ability to provide financial literacy training for a particular group of people in a meaningful, sustainable way that they can build upon that for a lifetime.
Yeah, this whole thing about sustainability, resiliency, and all that is really becoming buzzwords. It's so important for development globally. Not just, you know, even in developed countries like the United States or UK or Japan places, but also in the middle of the African continent, Latin America. How do you build that, though, into a financial market and a financial company, because people are saying, you know, day to day you have no idea what the currency is going to be worth, you have no idea what maybe the assets will be worth, but yet you're making this as part of a constant through what it is you're doing. How do you do that?
Well, you know, I think one of the things that sets us apart, Dr. Sam, is we provide financial literacy and training as a major service as part of the company, as opposed to something that is you know, a community service project that happens a few hours a month or something like that. It's part of who we are and what we do.
So it's ongoing.
It's ongoing, and the idea is that irrespective of what's happening in financial markets around the world, capital markets, individuals, where we are, where we live right now, we still have to have some comprehension of financial information. We still have to be able to act upon that with confidence. So just as we need to have academic literacy, we still need, as individuals, to have financial literacy and be able to act on that regardless of what's happening around the world. It's very important from the standpoint of being able to take care of ourselves and build on some prosperity and principles of that moving forward.
Looking at the people in Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States, how does this financial competence, how do you assess that? How do you make sure they have it so they don't get in things like, you know, the big financial bust, you know, 10 years ago, when people actually, I think they were abused by the system and they became the victims instead of, you know, being able to benefit. How do you allow to identify that and then move forward?
Yeah. So, you know, Dr. Sam, what we do in the programs that we have is we do a lot of pre and post testing and surveys as well. And we focus a lot on making sure that we've got metrics that we are measuring as we move forward in the programs that our students in the programs that we deliver are undertaking. So, for example, simple concepts like how do we relate to money? From the very beginning, an individual student's financial psychology profile, we measure that pre-class to post-class, pre-program to post-program. In the specific project and development goals that we're undertaking in Baltimore, one of the major tenets that we are looking to help move our students through is an improved credit profile, because at the end of the day we're putting them in a home ownership situation, and obviously the banks need our students to have a certain type of profile in order to get access to the capital that they need for their home loans, et cetera. Now, there are great programs that make things easier, but still they need to hit certain benchmarks along the way. So we're measuring where they are pre-class, pre-program, and hitting benchmarks along the way. And as our students are going through the program, we're helping them, we're measuring their progress and making sure that they're hitting these benchmarks and milestones along the way.
Looking at the unbanked nature of these people, you have many people that are unbanked in the urban areas, inner cities. What is the meaning of that, and then how do you bring them out of that unbanked to where they're in to locally, nationally, and internationally recognized financial institutions? How do you do that?
Yeah, so, you know, Dr. Sam, unbanked really means, you know, that segment of the population that may not necessarily have banking relationships. They may not necessarily be used to having bank accounts. So there may be a significant segment of our population that we're working with that could be in that situation. One of the things that is fundamental in improving your financial literacy that I think is often overlooked in many of the programs that are out there is understanding and dealing with the person's relationship to money. We call that financial psychology. And from the very beginning, initial day one class that someone takes with us, Dr. Sam, we begin to address that. And so what comes along with being unbanked is the potential to to not necessarily have faith in the banking system, which potentially is understandable when you walk that path, but also is a certain potential for not having all the tenets in place for building wealth. So when you deal with and you put in place financial psychology and working with improving someone's state of mind when it comes to building wealth, we can address someone being in an unbanked situation to moving them through the process where they can really get to a point to build on wealth creation and prosperity for the long term.
Looking at the post-home ownership financial literacy, I know this is something that you really key on as well because you're intaking this people. Mm-hmm. They may not even be a client, but you're saying, hey, we're going to set a benchmark. We're going to get you to this level, and then let's see what your skills are. And step by step, we'll take you through this. So let's say now they're getting into the process of being able to own that home. Now what happens next so that they don't actually end up losing that home, because that happens to many people that get into these situations.
That does. And so, you know, what we're really speaking to is that sustainability concept that we talked about earlier, which is, you know, making sure that we don't end up in a situation that people have ended up before. So, you know, in the post-financial literacy, post-home ownership situation with respect to financial literacy, you know, what we're putting in place is the ability for people to really act with confidence. That is a true key component. It's just like in academic literacy. Once you know that you have the skills and tools to move forward, then the world opens up for you. So that translates into potentially creating the opportunity to have better paying jobs for yourself as one of our students, maybe even getting to the point where you're considering entrepreneurship for yourself as an individual. Maybe potential investment opportunities. But those 3 points become possible once you really have the belief in yourself that you know how to look at financial information and internalize it and be able to act responsibly with the information that you're given from a financial standpoint.
Okay, Kwesi, looking at this, what about what habits should people develop now? And we only have 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. We got to be quick. What financial habits they need to have, make them successful, and help make Liberty Row successful.
Okay. You need to set goals. You need immediate goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals financially. You need to pay yourself first. That is extremely important.
That means savings.
Savings. And then you also need to develop an emergency fund. Okay, regardless of savings, you also need to have a backup fund just in case anything else happens along the way.
So that sounds like really good counsel there, young man. Anyway, this is Kwesi Robotham. He is the managing member of Liberty Row Capital, LLC, talking about how to get people into their own homes and be able to keep them there. Thank you as we create the Emerald Planet.
So they say it's a man's world? I don't see anybody's name on it.
While they were doing their thing, we slowly changed all.
Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Open enrollment is back. Enroll Virginia wants you to get covered for 2016 and beyond. You have until January 31st to enroll in affordable health care. If you wish to have coverage by January 1st, you must enroll by December 15th. That's less than a month from now. Remember, the penalty for not having health insurance next year is a minimum of $695 per person. Don't think twice about it. To find an enrollment event near you or to get free help with the application, visit our webpage or give us a call. El periodo de inscripción ha comenzado. Enroll Virginia quiere que tú y tu familia tengan cobertura médica este próximo 2016. Tienes hasta el 31 de enero para inscribirte. Si deseas cobertura desde el 1 de enero, debes inscribirte antes del 15 de diciembre. Recuerda que si no tienes cobertura el próximo año, te multarán una suma mínima de $695 por cada adulto. No lo pienses más y visita nuestra página para más información o para ayuda con la solicitud.
Hey, Hard, what's this? That's my resignation letter. You're resigning? Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you get stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit. I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me. Okay. But remember, it's not what you say. It's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. As we come to you on a week-to-week basis, we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we have a planet that's going to 9 billion people by 2050 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of the century. So how do we provide all the basic infrastructure, the needs that they have as far as health, welfare, roads, transportation, all the things that they need, as well as housing. And I have someone here who's very much involved in some very exciting organizations who's going to be sharing about what it is that she's doing. This is Lisa Harriman. She is CEO and CMO, which I just saw that recently when I looked up your bio. As a strategist is Ntava Inc. I'll let you describe what that actually means. But looking at your background, what makes a woman want to move into this whole area as far as business development, which you've been in for many years, but now you've joined the Conscious Capitalist Group.
Right.
And this is the DC chapter, but also that's expanding around the United States. But yet you're embedding this in everything that you're doing now as far as your business. Tell us a little bit about that nexus of what's going on, the conscious capitalism, and then we'll progress into these activities as far as Baltimore, Maryland, and some other things that are happening.
Okay.
But welcome to the Emerald Planet TV, I should say that first.
Oh, thank you. I'm a business strategist. I originally started my career in marketing, and actually prior to that was in economic development. So you were asking me how I got involved and started in all this. I was fortunate enough to be involved years ago in some demonstration projects in economic development. So different ways to help communities succeed, people succeed in business has always been a big interest of mine. My job now as a strategist with Ntava is to help companies when they have a vision of where they want to be, a point A and a point B, to help them design a way to get there, a path or a map. And so we take everything from startup companies and we help them with exit strategies and market strategies, and we do feasibility studies, and we design a way for them to be successful.
Yeah, looking at this as far as going on to the project, the Conscious Capitalism group is looking at not only just talking about, hey, we need to have this new paradigm, this new dynamic to move forward in the world and practice in the inner city, but we actually need to be doing it. Right. So they've selected Baltimore, Maryland, which is on the east coast of the United States. And so this Conscious Community Initiative, tell us a little bit about that, and how does that relate to you as a strategist and to Ntava itself?
Well, I think if you look at Baltimore as a city, they've got some pretty significant challenges. Their location is on the East Coast, about midway up the continent. And so the traffic that flows up and down that corridor leads to some challenges for Baltimore as a city. So what conscious capitalism is doing is looking these people are amazing. They're not just looking at coming in and building houses and giving to them and leaving. We're looking at ways to sustain that. So not only does it involve teaching them, as Kwesi said, to do the financial side of it, but there's some major life issues that they need to resolve as well. As you have mentioned, that there's a problem with single parenting, and there are problems and issues with finances, with housing, with education, and all of those need to be addressed. When we look at a conscious community, the community is being built with intent, which means all of these need to come together. The community needs to have a unified vision, and they need a strategy to achieve that vision.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic when you're looking at this conscious community and how you're doing these strategies. You're looking at the entrance, but also you're looking at the exit. So when people saying, well, we're already talking about the exit, these are neighborhoods that are at risk, they have actual problems and all that, but we are developing an exit strategy. What are you seeing as the bridge from here's where we are, where we're starting today, very much on the ground, many challenges, but yet if we look at the exit of this is a brighter, better, more functioning community. How do you do that? How do you build that bridge?
Sam, there's so many different nuances to that. Part of it will be an assessment coming in and taking a look at the unique issues for that community. But the first thing you have to do is build a community. In our society today, there's a lot of disjoint. Some people don't even know their next door neighbors. And we want to move these communities back to being more synergistic, more supportive of each other. And you have to have an intent. A lot of people don't have that community. They're very self-oriented, and they don't have the intent to build a community that's safe or a community that is cooperative. And we want a
stable community where people are interacting and working together.
Exactly. One that is conducive to not just your growth, but everybody's growth around you. So the same principles that you would follow for a conscious business, you would follow in a conscious community. It would be things like co-op, childcare, or maybe there's a transportation issue getting children back and forth to school events and things like that, and you can come up with a Uber type environment for children to help parents get their kids transported. There's sick children. What do you do with that when you need to be at the office or at work and your child's sick?
And I think also too, if I can just kind of jump into this with you, Lisa, is that you've really focused on how do people become more creative as providing, their own security, their own background, creating new businesses. Right. So you just talked about this Uber concept. Well, why not have those drivers of the people from within the community?
Absolutely.
If you're dealing with sick children, why not have people that are trained from within the community
Absolutely.
that work with the children in the community? I think that's where you're going, or that's what you really focus on, right?
Exactly. And because you're going to build an element of trust in that community. That's very important. You don't want to trust your children to hop into a cab with a cab driver from who knows where. Instead, you know that the people on your block, that certain mothers are home during certain times of the day. It's kind of like a carpooling type thing. But maybe the stay-at-home moms can provide that kind of a service to the community. So it's a cooperative thing.
So really, looking at that, it's almost like you have cooperative housing in a sense, where you have some elders in the community. Right. They have wisdom, they have knowledge.
Absolutely.
And yet many of them are on fixed income, but if they have these going to work moms that can feel the freedom to do that, it's like, let's go down the street to grandma, maybe no physical kin, no blood relationship, but yet people are starting to get to know each other and feel safe and secure in that. So what you're doing is you're bringing everybody together. I guess that's what you're calling this conscious community.
Correct. I envision it being like a community center that offers a lot of services that help with family, not only just the financial end of it, but maybe there are frustration issues. Single families have a lot of frustrations that can, exhibit themselves as anger, and they need to be able to work through that, and support groups. Mm-hmm. There's some unique challenges living in a city like Baltimore that they need to have those special interest groups and things where they can go to figure out how to resolve those. If these people in this community start businesses within the community, which is another program that I would like to see, then the local grocery store is owned by somebody you know, and the local ice rink or library or whatever it is are all people that you know. Mm-hmm. And so you start to take ownership of this community, and everything is built with intent. Mm-hmm. And when there's ownership, there's pride. When there's pride, there's protection. They begin to become a more cohesive, stronger group. It's kind of like the sum of the parts is greater, or the sum of the parts are greater than the whole.
Yeah, but the whole thing about it too, and I think this is absolutely fantastic, because what triggered in my mind, what we're talking about, something I was involved in many years ago, is what's called community education, where the school becomes a focus. Right. And most communities, particularly in an older city like Baltimore, was a bustling, industrialized, it was a seaport and all mm-hmm. these other things. The many schools, but then you have the library, you have the healthcare services, right. You have elder care possibly, you have the Meals for Wheels, all these other kinds of programs, right. Maybe all centered in the school itself. At the same time, people learning job skills to go out and have jobs. Right. You're learning how to get your driver's license, because that's one of the big impediments in many communities in the inner city. When we were trying to identify people to go into work, people didn't have driver's license, never had one, and they didn't know how to get one. Right. And just these very simple things that most people take for granted in these areas, if you can provide it, then you can do that.
Right.
But going back to this conscious community initiative, and I want to back up to where we actually started, this conscious capitalism, how do you see this now that you've been involved for, I think, about a year or something like that, how do you see this evolving through this practical experience in Baltimore?
Well, I'm hoping that it's contagious. I hope that we can do a paradigm shift with people and get them thinking about greater good and about their influence and their part of being something much bigger than themselves. I think that by taking a step back and saying that here's an end goal that you want to achieve, this is your vision for your community, and then we can step back and we can say, here are the steps you need to take to get to where you want to be. And then we can identify resources. We can identify the pathway that they need to follow to get there. And I think all along the way, if we build in incremental successes and they can see that they're benefiting from the whole process, that will start the community. Once that community starts, then the children in that community will see that and hopefully carry it on.
That's absolutely fantastic. In 10 seconds, Ntava, where do you see it next 5-10 years?
Oh, that's really hard to say. Helping companies achieve their goals and in a good way that benefits everybody, the stakeholders, the customers.
That's fantastic. That's the right answer. You got it. Anyway, thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.